Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range with a ZFK-55, and the guys over at Edelweiss Arms supplied this rifle for us to shoot. It's not my rifle, but I have it for this afternoon, and this is my first time ever firing a rifle quite like this. Now it's based on the K31. We'll get more into that later in the video, but it is chambered in 7.5 Swiss or GP11, and it features a 3.5 power optic on it. It's a quick detach mount. This was originally designed to be a DMR rifle, but I'm sure it may have been used in sniping at some point, but it was originally designed as a DMR. Now, it's very similar to the K31, but it's a lot heavier than the K31, and it has some cool features like the built-in bipod, which we'll show you a little bit later in the video, and again, the quick detach mount, and there's some stuff that they've done with the bolt itself that allows us to put, or them to put, an optic directly over the line of bore, because if you know anything about K31s or 1911 service rifles, you'll know that they eject the spent casing straight up and they feed from a stripper clip straight down. It's an interesting solution the Swiss came up with to get around that little engineering problem. So let's go ahead and load the rifle up. These are traditional Swiss stripper clips, and it's just a waxed paper with a metallic ends. And you just set these in. We've shown them before in video. Just set them into the rifle like that. You'll notice it's at about a 15-degree angle. That's the secret, how they got around the scope being over the ejection port. And just push the rounds down into the magazine. And the other thing that the rifle will do now is eject sideways at about 15 degrees versus straight up. All right, let's do a little bit of shooting with this bad boy. Now you'll notice it has a huge muzzle brake on the end, and it really does serve pretty well as a muzzle brake in terms of reducing the recoil to 7.5, and also you have the weight of this rifle, which has what would be the equivalent of what we would call a bull barrel today. So it's a very heavy barrel. And the rifle does tell you when it's empty, keeps the bolt from going home. All right, guys, let's take a deeper dive into the ZFK-55. I have to apologize about the wind today, guys. We are at the new range in a big open field of soybeans, and wind is just the reality for us out here when we shoot here. So we're trying to break up the wind noise as much as possible. That's what this little furry thing is on my chest, but you're probably still going to hear a little bit of it. So just want to apologize for that. So the ZFK-55, you can see here next to the K31 on which it's based. Now you'll notice right away that the ejection port on the K31, and I told Jason to grab a K31 out of the gun room, and he happened to pick the ugliest one I own. Has the worst markings on it, but it's a shooter. So you can see how this one is designed to use the exact same stripper clips, but this one is designed to eject going straight up. You'll notice if you look at the ejection port on this rifle, it's canted 15 degrees to the right. So that's how they got around the scope, which I mentioned earlier in the video. Taking the rifle apart is very similar. It's identical pretty much to stripping a K31. So you'll push down on the bolt release, and it will just release your bolt out the rear. I don't know if Jason will be able to pick up on this or not, but the charging handle is even bent slightly at a 15-degree angle. So this bolt will not work in a K31, and conversely, a K31 bolt will not work in the ZFK-55. So while they're obviously relatives, they're not the same rifle. I don't know of any parts that are actually interchangeable between these rifles, except perhaps maybe the sights and some other small parts. You'll also notice that on the 55 we have this Monte Carlo style stock, which isn't something you would normally see in a military service rifle with the checkering here. This looks more like a target rifle, but this really is a military service rifle. And it's a very heavy, thick wood stock. Now you'll notice I have the scope off the rifle at the moment. And that's because it ships, or would have been issued with, the metal can that you see here. Has belt loops on it, has a little latch here on the side, and inside you're going to find your scope. There's rubber protectors on the lid and one in the base of the can so that the optic is protected while it's in storage in the metal can. So there's rubber down there and rubber right here. Seems like the Swiss always think of everything. All right, so to put the scope on, this is probably one of the better quick detach mounts out there for military service rifles. You put the toe of the scope mount in the front here, and then there's this big plunger button right here with a really heavy spring on it. And you'll see how it's moving that rear claw. All right, so what I'm gonna do is put that toe in, push it forward, push in on that rear spring, and that's it. Toolless installation of the 3.5 magnified optic. Now the reticle in here, I'll show you a picture of that. It's pretty similar. If you ever shot a Mosin Nagant, the sniper rifle, you'll know what type of reticle we're looking through right now. Again, it's 3.5 magnification. You do have an ocular adjustment, so you can bring everything into sharp focus. And then you have elevation and windage, with the windage being on the left-hand side of the scope versus the right-hand side that we're used to nowadays in the United States. On the front part of the rifle, you have these really awkward bipod legs. So this would have been meant to be used in the field, obviously. The Swiss is a mountainous area, so if you're shooting downhill, these are going to work very well for you. They're made out of sheet metal and they fold away, but you can pivot the gun on the bipod, and of course you have a full range of motion going up and down as well. They have spikes on the feet, and it just folds away nicely. Now, despite the fact that this would be a fighting rifle, you may notice there's a bayonet lug on the end of the barrel. Let me set this down here really quick. This is the bayonet that goes with the 55. As I knock the sandbag on the ground. There you go. So believe it or not, there's the ZFK-55 with its bayonet mount. Now also take a look at that muzzle brake. That is a huge muzzle device, but it works very, very well. If you've ever shot the 7.5 GP11, you'll know that it has a little bit of kick to it. This mitigates that kick considerably along with the weight of the rifle. It weighs a couple pounds more than a standard K31. All right, let me pick up my rear bag here and go ahead and load up the rifle one more time. And I'm kind of curious if the bayonet dangling out there is going to change the point of impact. All right, let's grab another stripper clip. Well, you know what? Before we do that, let's see if my taking the scope off and putting it back on changed the point of impact. Then we'll put the scope on, or I'm sorry, then we'll put the bayonet on. So we've removed the scope and put it back on. That fast. It's really solid feeling. And now we're going to give it 6 more rounds of GP11 here. All right. And let's see. Set this rifle over here so I don't knock it off the table. And now let's see if we have a return to 0 or not. Yep, it landed right in the same group I fired at the starting of the video. Yeah, this is a very, very pleasant rifle to shoot. All that added weight and that muzzle brake, you can shoot this thing all day long. Yeah, it's a very, very handy little rifle. All right, let's go ahead and see what happens now when we put the bayonet on here. Putting a bayonet on a rifle this big, I pity the soul that had to carry this thing in the field because it's really that heavy. But let's charge her up and see if we still get a solid hit on a man-sized target. We're using a challenge target down there, and it's the IPSC kill zone target that you're familiar seeing here on the channel. That's what we're shooting at right now. The reticle's so coarse, it's not really a bullseye type optic. It's not meant to shoot nice tight groups. It's meant to hit a man-sized target at range. All right. Now the bayonet's wobbling around on the end of the barrel there. You can see it moving around as I move the gun. Okay, let's see if our point of impact shifts. Hard to tell, that target's getting pretty beat up, but it did hit steel, so that's a good sign. All right, looking now, looks like the group may have shifted slightly down and to the left with the bayonet attached, but still definitely in the comm or the center of mass. That's pretty cool, guys. With all those features, again, you have your iron sights. If you want to take the scope off and put it away in its little metal box here, you still have your standard sights, which would, make sure I put this in here the right way. Nope, definitely this way. There we go. So now that objective is sitting on a rubber end piece, and the ocular is protected by a rubber piece. And then when you shake it, it doesn't move at all inside that can. Yeah, so you have your iron sights here, and your front sight is adjustable just like a standard K31, which has that distinctive sideways trough cut in the front sight. So you can adjust for windage on your front sight, and then you're going to adjust for elevation back here with your rear sight. On this particular gun, it seems that all the numbers are matching. We have a number here on the receiver of 1157. Have another number here on the bolt, 1157. The scope canister, 1157. And then the scope itself is also numbered 1157. So that's a pretty sweet find. Now I know you guys are going to ask me what something like this costs. I don't even know. The guys over at Edelweiss, I don't think have even set a price for this one yet. They're very obscure rifles and hard to find. But if you're looking at something like this, you're looking easily between the $8,000 to $10,000 range would be my guess, given the fact that it has all this stuff plus its field kit maintenance, its maintenance kit and its bayonet and matching scope. Yeah, it's a beauty. A real dream to shoot. One of those bucket list guns.
That is amazing. Even the trigger is nice on this thing. Wow.
This is the M1D sniper rifle, and this would have been in service about the same time that the Swiss adopted the 55. So you can see from an engineering standpoint how the Swiss overcame the issue of having to deal with stuff going straight down or coming straight out of the action. With the M1D, which would have been used around the Korean War time period, we just simply offset the scope. Now keep in mind that this is pretty much the same thing as the M1C, which was used during the Second World War. This was just a simplified version of that. And this, again, didn't come about until the end of the war. So as you can see, what we did, move the scope over. What the Swiss did was to rotate the entire action 15 degrees to the right. Now, the benefit is that with the Swiss solution, you can still use the gun if you're a lefty. If you're a lefty wanting to shoot this, it's far more difficult. Not saying it can't be done, I've seen people do it, but it's far more difficult. So, and there's other advantages as well. We were just talking about one advantage in that if you have the scope set off to the side of the bore, if you set it up to intersect at 100 yards, anything inside 100 yards is going to be off to the left, then anything past 100 yards is going to be off to the right. So what you really want to do is know the distance from the center of bore to the center of the scope and zero it like that downrange. Let's say it's 2 inches off. You're going to want to make sure that your group is 2 inches to the left of the point of aim. Okay, so let's go ahead and load up the M1D. You guys have seen it here on the channel before. This is my rifle. Loading the rifle is very simple. Just take your 8-round end-block clip, insert it into the top, see how it misses just barely the scope. Put your hand on the charging handle, push down until you hear a click, and then just help that first round home, and the weapon is ready to shoot. For a right-handed shooter, this thing is pretty darn nice. Now this optic doesn't have the same magnification as the 55, but it has almost the same reticle. All right, and with that, you hear the distinctive ringing of the end block clip being ejected, and the rifle's empty. This rifle has adjustable turrets on the top and the side. This one is actually a BDC. It's marked out to 900 yards, and then you can make windage adjustments with the knob here on the left-hand side. Once again, you see a knob on the left-hand side versus the right-hand side. In modern day optics, on the left-hand side, you're going to find your parallax adjustment. Also, this rifle could be said that it has a quick detach mount. This big knurled knob, you just unscrew this, put the scope away. When you go back to put the scope on the rifle, it drops into a notch that's cut, tighten it down, and it should return back to 0. So, 2 different solutions to the same problem. Pretty interesting. All right, guys, let's give this bad boy a try with its bipod. It's a little bit awkward to say the least. Take our stripper clip, charge the rifle. And we should be ready to go. See those bipod legs walking down? And that's it. I will say, it's a little bit awkward. I'm definitely used to having the bipod a little further forward, but it's functional. And it has a sling to carry this heavy beast around with. We'll make use of that walking out of here. You can't leave these laying around. These are expensive and hard to find. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed coming out to the range with us and shooting the ZFK-55. It's a very interesting piece of military history, and I certainly enjoyed having the opportunity to shoot this rifle. Again, this isn't my rifle. I wish it were. If you jump online, you're going to find a few of them for sale here and there. But again, I mean, the price is going to vary. And at auction, who knows what these will bring. Now, this one may be valued a bit higher because it does have its original box. The scope came in, has a bayonet for it, and also it has this armorer's kit, which is really cool. When I took a look inside of here, I was really surprised at some of the stuff I found. So for example, I mean, this is how complete the armorer's kit is. Has complete replacement bolt, charging handle, springs, and you have more kit over here on the side, which you have to undo the buttons. I'm not going to do, but this thing is basically intended to completely repair this rifle, apparently, in the field. So as a complete kit, this thing could cost, you know, like I said, anywhere between 8 to 10 grand, something like that. Who knows? They haven't set a price on it yet. This is the only one I believe that they have. So I'm just glad I got to shoot it. The rifle, I mean, we've talked about K31s before. The function, I'll just go over here really quick, is very similar. So you have your charging knob or ring here, and if you want to cock the weapon, you cock it by pulling it to the rear. If you want to make the weapon safe, you pull it out and turn it to its sideways position, and that makes the trigger dead. To reactivate it, you pull it to there, and let me just make sure that the weapon's empty. And then when you pull the trigger, the striker goes home, the firing pin impacts the primer and initiates the charge, powder charge. So again, it's very similar to a K31 in those regards. The only difference being none of the parts in the bolt are interchangeable with the K31. All right, guys, like I said, hope you enjoyed coming out, learn a little bit more about this rifle. I'm, just ecstatic in the fact that I had an opportunity to even shoot one of these, because I never thought I'd ever see one. So I want to thank the guys from Edelweiss Arms for bringing this out and letting us shoot a video with it. And now I'm going to fire off my last 6 rounds, which is a sad thing to say. If I had the money, I'd make it mine. You guys, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, you can do that by swinging by Patreon and becoming a Patreon supporter. We do not take any money from the industry. We're 100% viewer supported. Follow the link down below and check out some of our incentives. Also, please swing by and check out forgefromfreedom.com, and there's a mat collection. That's a t-shirt section, and we sell some t-shirts there. That's another way that we monetize here at the Military Arms Channel. And last but not least, check us out at Copper Custom, which is coppercustom.com. Thanks again, guys, for watching. We appreciate you sticking with us for 10 years, and hopefully we got another 10 years left in us. All right, did I charge this weapon? I did. Let's fire off these last few rounds and put the rifle away. What a sad thing to say. Well, all good things must come to an end. See you guys later.